If you have more positive pressure in your clean environment, it's going to be pushing that clean air out into the negative environment. So you want your adjacent spaces to have a negative pressure flow where that dirty air, if you will stay outside, and your clean air is supporting all of your processed goods.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal to help you fight dirty. Every instrument, every time. Whether you're tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now, turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
This week on Beyond Clean, we speak with Randalyn Walters, Corporate Surgical Services Educator at SpecialtyCare. And Hank, I know we've been following Randalyn quite closely on LinkedIn, and she's going to join us today. And no easy task. We're going to take Sterile Storage 101, educate all the newbies and remind all the experienced staff out there about the whys behind it and what it's like to be somebody in the department that's brand new, and really center on that again, because everybody plays a part in making sure that new staff understand things. And it's not just the educator's job. It's not just a supervisor or shift supervisor's job. It's everybody's job to be able to do that. So lots of considerations, I think, that are going to come up during this episode. But again, it's going to be really hard to pack this into 30 minutes.
Yeah, Justin, the surprising concepts that come out of just a basic conversation around sterile storage, I think, is going to surprise some folks in this interview. And I know it's easy, again, to take this thing for granted. It's 101, right? So what am I going to learn in this? Well, I think we're going to learn some things about, hey, there's risk in our sterile storage area. Just because everything's packaged and it's on a shelf doesn't mean that it's completely safe if you're missing some of these basics that are going to be covered in this 101 conversation. So I want to challenge folks, if you're tuning in like you do sometimes on some of these podcast episodes and you're going to listen to the first couple of minutes and say, yeah, does this really hook me? Well, I want to hook you, because that is a dangerous place. And regardless of if this is your first day or your 1,001st day, we're going to provide some critical insights and important perspectives on this topic, and hopefully help you keep your patients safer through a high quality sterile storage area.
All right, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with Randalyn Walters. I'm Justin Poulin.
And I'm Hank Balch.
From 17 Studios, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
Joining us now is Randalyn Walters, Corporate Surgical Services Educator at SpecialtyCare. And this season, as you may have figured out by now, is dedicated to sterile storage and transportation. And we are covering A to Z on this throughout the season. And today we're going to get away from the A to Z and we're going to do the 101, Sterile Storage 101. So making sure that everybody understands what it is, where it is, et cetera, et cetera. So Randalyn, first off, let us congratulate you on your new job. Welcome, as Hank said before we got started, welcome to the dark side. As everybody loves to say.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a long time coming. I'm very excited to be here and very excited to contribute to what y'all are doing and ready for this.
Well, and your title is educator, so this is a great episode to have you on for, because this is all going to be packed with education. And, obviously you're very involved in social media and educating through LinkedIn and other social media platforms as well. And I think we just need to continue driving this forward. There's going to be lots of new entrants to sterile processing in the coming years. We actually did an episode last season about workforce shortage. And so I think, content that really covers the gamut of experience in sterile processing from an educational perspective is just so critical. And I love that we're doing this one-on-one today.
Yes, very excited. I love to share, let's go back to the basics, because we can lose track in that and lose focus in that. So it's important for us to go back and really share the importance to what we're doing.
Yeah, that foundational knowledge is critical. And to your point, as we get more and more experience, sometimes we forget the whys that are all part of that foundational knowledge and building that base. Why don't you start, though? I kind of teed up that you've got a new role and, we've seen you all over social media, but why don't you talk about your background? Tell people who you are.
Sure. Well, started in healthcare just over 13 years ago with an entry in a certified nurse assistant role, and was trying to figure out which way I wanted to go. And so very passionate about the patient care, very passionate about what I was seeing actually in a nursing home environment, and then started to tour some facilities, get into some OR space, and just kind of try to get a feel for which way I wanted to go. And once I saw the operating room, it was pretty much, that was it at that point. I knew I wanted to be there. I wanted to be involved, very interested in the technical and the details, and just seeing the vast majority of what was on the table was very overwhelming, but very exciting. So went into a surgical technology program and graduated from school with surgical technology. Did a few roles along the way, from OB, labor and delivery tech, scrubbing C-sections, to working in general surgery and a few things here and there in surgical tech, but was always helping out in the sterile processing environment all along. So over 10 years. In the very beginning, it was kind of what you learned in school. It was just rewrapping all of the donated packs that we got from local hospitals, where they would say, oh, you practiced scrubbing today in school. Go downstairs and rewrap that stuff, or wrap the towels, or, save all the indicators because we're going to reuse them. And when you're doing that, you go, wait, is there actually people that do this? Like, I'm doing it so we can reuse it in school, but is there people that do this? And they said, yeah. I said, wow, I want to see that. I went down to SPD and I started volunteering some extra time on the weekends, and then worked part-time, and then worked overtime, and ended up leaving surgical technology and going full force into sterile processing, and haven't left since. I worked from a technician up to a manager level, and then a lot of process improvement projects with other companies, over the years, and standardization of trays and any type of quality role. In the last 3 years, I've been focused on education. And so I would imagine that I'm going to stay right here. I love what I do.
Well, and you left out another cool aspect of your background. You have a fantastic artwork series from Beyond Clean in your educational program, right? I don't know if I'm describing it correctly, right? But in the hallway or in your training area. And as Justin said, we've seen you through LinkedIn and online, for a couple of years now, and have been following your passion for the industry and your insight, obviously, that you've been sharing. I love the background story, too, about you kind of getting pulled into sterile processing and getting the bug, but also your emphasis on the details, loving the details about surgery, loving the details about this industry. And you actually gave me another reason for doing this show. I was thinking, oh, yeah, let's do this one-on-one episode and let's talk to new technicians, or let's talk to old technicians who maybe have forgotten the basics. But you just brought up a great point. There's a lot of folks from the OR side that may be coming down into sterile processing, doing things, kind of come into the sterile storage and haven't gotten that basic overview, that deep overview that the folks in sterile processing would have had as a part of their role. So great context, great background. Let's get into some of this 101 here. Lay the foundation. What is sterile storage? When we say that term, what does that mean and what's important about what we're describing there?
Yes, and I definitely have a wide variety of the Beyond Clean artwork in my developed classroom. So thank you for that. And used a lot of that in the poster campaign for the organization and just lining the walls and really showing the organizations who sterile processing is, because I didn't want everyone to have that feeling that I had. I was working in the OR and didn't even know what was going on, and really getting the support out there and the information about what SPD professionals are doing. So that is definitely a big part of that. Sterile storage is extremely critical, and some of the importance from sterile storage I think we get laxed on in a lot of departments, and it's very easy for that to happen. It is a location, whether it be in your sterile processing department or located in another area, so maybe up in the pods or the cores between the operating rooms, we have to pay close attention to our traffic patterns and the sterile storage area of where we're keeping anything that has already gone through a sterilization process. So whether we're sterilizing it in-house or soft goods and supplies that are coming in pre-sterilized, all of these components need to live in a safe and protected environment that is clean and free of dust and debris and dirt in a low traffic area, so we can try to keep the sterility to the strongest form. Right? You can't guarantee the sterility, but we want to make sure that all of the items that we've processed or that have been sterilized and brought into our facility are put in a safe location. So basically, we sterilized it. We processed these items that are going to be used on a surgical procedure or going to be used on a patient, and we need to keep them in safe keeping before they're being used in that procedure. And it's easy to really, when I say laxed, I mean, we kind of forget about it in some aspect, right? If you are blessed with a department that's large enough to have maybe like a revamped department, and you were given all of this space and you put up all these extra storage shelves, you want to make sure that we're designing that space where you have a low traffic pattern. You don't want to have your employees weaving in and out of that space and causing more dust or debris or microbes from your skin or stuff stirring up or the doors opening and closing, because these items, we spend all of our time sterilizing. Everything we do is to get these items processed, so we need to make sure that we're keeping them safe before we're opening them and using them on a patient.
You bring up a really good point too. And we see similar concepts in the operating room. Like the more times you go in and out of the room, right? It can bring in more dust. It can stir up the air, and that's during the procedure, but it's an equal concern to ensuring the sterility of the packaging, right? So can we talk a little bit about the air exchanges too? Because I'm not sure everybody, I know anybody who's certified had to learn that for the exam, and it's a big focus, but can we talk about the importance of, positive air pressure and how that plays a part in making sure that when they do go in and out, that they're not introducing dust from another location that isn't held to the same standards in terms of protecting this package? Like you said, we can't guarantee it, but we can do everything in our power to protect it.
Yeah, when I teach my apprenticeship students or any of the students with education, I really focus in on this outside of just studying what the numbers should be. I know anybody who's certified is going to have this knowledge. We focus in on the numbers, right? The temperature ranges, the humidity control. But a very basic perspective that I try to use is just to draw a basic picture with a plus and a minus sign. Understanding what does it mean to have positive pressure or more clean airflow versus negative pressure. So a minus and a plus. What's happening? If you have more positive pressure in your clean environment, it's going to be pushing that clean air out into the negative environment. So you want your adjacent spaces to have a negative pressure flow where that dirty air, if you will stay outside, and your clean air is supporting all of your processed goods. So your positive air pressure is coming from your sterile storage and pushing outwards. And you could use a simple Kleenex test that they used to teach us back in the day when you're literally standing in the vestibule and holding a tissue to see which way the air flows back and forth. But it's extremely important to understand where the air is coming from. Is the air filtered? Who's monitoring that air and that filtration? What are the exchanges? What regulations your hospital follows? That's another key component there. We know that we want positive pressure in our sterile environments, but we also need to understand what our hospital guidelines are because they're not all the same. A lot of us focus in on AAMI, and we know AAMI talks about event-related sterility and positive pressure, and we know our ISHM talks about particular ranges. But if your facility has a different policy in place, or you may follow ASHRAE for a hospital air ventilation standard, those are different numbers. Those values are a lot different. So you may have a wide variety of areas in your hospital that are following different set of parameters. So it's important to know what your hospital maintains for those regulations, what your policy says, and making sure that your staff understands what that means to have the positive pressure that's pushing outward. And the same goes for your surrounding areas, right? I mean, we talk about decontam having a negative pressure. It's exactly the same concept. The dirty air you don't want to pull back into your sterile storage area. So negative is going to be pushing outward.
I want to go back to something that you kind of said at the beginning, Randalyn. I know I didn't have this concept in mind when we started this interview, but your description of it, I've been trying to sit in the place of a brand newbie, right, who knows nothing about anything related to sterile processing. And it's been a while since I was in that seat, about 12 years ago, for me, 2009. But you hear the word sterile storage and you think this storage area is sterile. And you have brought up, like a number of times, all of the challenges, with the airflow and with the restricted access and the packages themselves in the best possible scenario to remain processed. We hope they're sterile. We're trusting that they're sterile because it went through the process. But as you said, we can't guarantee it. But yeah, the description of the space itself is kind of a misnomer because it's not a sterile storage area. It's a clean storage area that happens to house sterile devices, right?
Correct. So in your sterile processing department or wherever it is you're going to have your designated space, there's a few key components here. No, it's not sterile. Yes, it's considered clean. So you have your clean and your dirty areas of your sterile processing department. Dirty, meaning decontamination. No, the space shouldn't be dirty. It's just dirty. That's where we receive our dirty items. Then you have your clean areas, prep and pack, sterilization, sterile storage. It is a clean environment, semi-restricted, not sterile environment itself. So the main factors you really want to pay attention to is what type of sterile storage you're going to use as a storage shelving. So what type of shelving is going to keep your items protected, whether that be open, semi-open, semi-closed, or fully closed. So you have a ton of different options there, and it's really important to focus in on the type of items that you're going to be keeping there. If you're keeping blue wrap versus rigid containers versus items that come in and out. If you have a full closed storage and you are storing pre-sterilized soft goods and trays, and you have to open and close these doors all day, every day, chances are you're going to take 20 times longer to pick your case carts, right? So you want to have a storage environment that is able to keep your inventory flow coming in and out. And the surrounding space itself has to be well maintained. So it's clean. So the routine cleaning of the shelves themselves. And there's a huge specifications on how you could do that with being able to remove sterile items from the shelf you chose. And how do you get it back onto that shelf, clean in between, and make sure that you're cleaning appropriately. So a lot of different things that could go into the area. It's definitely not a sterile environment. It's a clean environment. Should be the cleanest on your clean side with routine cleaning. The rest of your department obviously has to have routine cleaning, but there has to be a specific instructions for the way you're going to have your staff maintain this shelving and the items that you're keeping on the shelf.
Yeah, that challenge is so curious because if you look at a traditional sterile processing department and you just kind of visualize where the traffic is and who that traffic is on the clean side in the assembly area, it's almost always and only the sterile processing staff that's in the assembly area, processing trays, etc. But then once you move into the sterile storage area, all kinds of people can be in there, depending on how you have that access restricted. And you mentioned that, that's a critical component of just the basics of sterile storage is controlling that environment. But I'll tell you, I've been in a lot of facilities that it is the least controlled of the whole shebang. Like you couldn't get into decontam if you were the mayor of the city, right? But you can stroll into sterile storage if you're just someone off the street. And that causes like tremendous challenges for this whole concept of clean and sterile that you've been laying out. So can you, on the basics again, can you just reiterate what that restricted access means and how folks should be considering that, as they're looking at their sterile storage program?
Sure. Not only should it just be the personnel and approved personnel in full scrub attire that is working in that designated area. So if it's in the sterile processing department, then we want to hone in on just SPD staff. But we also want to take it a step further to really hone in on the staff that is assigned to that area and try to eliminate the wandering of individuals or the overpopulated sterile storage from staff members coming down and looking for things and touching things and limiting vendor representatives only as need basis. Really, we want to keep this area open to use in times of need. So whoever it is that's coming over there to take an item that is needed should be able to come over who's in full, their scrub attire, well hygiene, hand hygiene is followed, all of that good stuff. But there's some other concepts here to really pay attention to. In a lot of sterile processing departments and sterile storage, you may have two departments that are serving this: central supply or inventory coordinators who come and stock the shelves or have to do par levels on the shelves, or they're the ones doing the ordering. Then you may have another situation where your OR staff actually pulls the soft goods or the supplies, and then SPD has to pull the trays, or in a full SPD where they're pulling everything. We need to keep it to those individuals that are assigned to that area only and make sure that we're monitoring it. And then if you have an option, badge access your doors, things like that to really keep the outside traffic in. The environmental services staff, that's another piece. We see the EVS teams coming in now to try to do some more routine cleaning, which is great. We want the help. We need the routine cleaning of our departments, but we need to make sure that we're sharing our education and knowledge with them so they understand what they're dealing with. A lot of them are shying away from cleaning those areas. Yeah, okay, we've got a solid shelf on the bottom. We're following all of the expectations with 18 inches from the sprinkler heads. Things with sterile storage guidelines we can touch on. The amount of space on the shelves. You have to have tray liners and shelf liners on the bottom shelves to protect.
Why not all the shelves? I mean, like, seriously, I get that the guideline is the bottom shelf, but why not all the shelves?
So bottom shelves is to protect during the cleaning and really keep those items off of the floor. And
moisture too, right? Because the floors have to be clean, so we don't want any splashing up. I get that. Yeah.
But if you don't have the shelf, let's go down this path. If you don't have the shelf liners on all of the shelves, and you have just wire shelving, how are you really cleaning all of the wire shelving? If you use a wipe or a designated wipe that's approved, 90% of the time it's going to snag, or you're going to have moisture dripping down. So you really have to be careful with what you're using to clean this shelving. And with the top shelf, I've seen a multitude of facilities that implement the shelf liners on the top and the bottom, and they say that that's all that's required because we're protecting everything.
So take me to dust covers. Take me to dust covers, because that's the logical next step in that conversation. Talk about the role of dust covers.
Yes, that's the next thing. I have that on my list. So sterility maintenance covers, as they would be called by many of the manufacturers, and keeping the contents in the package sterile. Okay, so let's put a dust cover over everything. Let's dust cover everything that's coming over into sterile storage and making sure that the components inside are being kept safe. We see a lot of facilities utilizing, and I see this practice a lot, just using the dust covers when and if they're going outside. They have to go from building to building. Then that's the only time that they're going to use a sterility maintenance cover. But that's not entirely correct. You should be protecting your trays to the best capacity that you possibly can. So if you have anything that is sitting on a sterile storage shelf and you feel like it's not protected or safe, then put it in a dust cover, especially if they're going to be leaving out of the department. I mean, you could really go down into open and closed shelving versus open and closed case carts. When does it start to become detrimental to that tray? When you enter which type of environment.
Yeah, I mean, even back to your comments about the traffic and the restricted access, like if you're in a facility that struggles to restrict that access and you know it's going to be high traffic anyways, that should be pushing you closer toward the sterility maintenance covers, right? But if you're in an area that has low dust, like high restrictions, low traffic, and you can control that, then it may not be as big a deal. And so, yeah, that's an important kind of decision-making, critical thinking.
Use them. They're disposable and they're available. And if you weigh out the cost of what you're going to spend on a sterility maintenance cover versus what you're going to spend on reprocessing 350 trays, and that makes my mind think about, there's, the sterile storage area in general within your department. I'd like to touch on this just for a second. The location itself, we want it to be closest to where you're distributing out, right? Wherever we're transporting these items to. You don't want to have it located. If you have the opportunity to do some revamping and moving this location, think about it. You want the least amount of travel, the least amount of foot traffic coming in and out, but you also don't want to back your sterile storage right up against the door that goes outside, right up against the door that goes to the loading dock that's open all the time, or backed up against where your cart washers are going to be coming out of.
And don't you also want it really segmented from the clean area too? Because sometimes, I realize that we have all the indicators in place, but I feel like sometimes if the structure of the department doesn't have a clear separation between sterile storage and prep and pack, that does sometimes create a potential oversight. When you consider the volume, especially in a larger facility that's going through, and you figure the volume of turnover, sometimes having a very disorganized and unstructured sterile storage blending in with prep and pack is a recipe for disaster. And, you were talking about, just controlling the traffic, right? So if I'm coming down from the OR, you're telling me I can't just go get what I want. But I think sometimes going and getting what you want and or need, it can be that organization piece. I really want to touch on that. That structure part is so important. And we did a really cool interview a few seasons back with Gary Bassi, who talked about how signage can play such a great part in communicating. And especially as you orient new people. And as we do this 101 conversation, and Hank keeps very appropriately resetting us on, think about your first 6 months on the job and learning all of this information, right? What are your thoughts around having that signage and a structured environment, not only to help make it easier for people who are new to the department to find what they need as they're picking for the case, but also from the standpoint of just efficiency for everybody? High volume of outsiders coming in or going, or well restricted or otherwise, having an organized sort of sterile storage and knowing where things are and being able to find it quickly and efficiently, isn't that super critical to the sterile storage, design considerations?
Yeah, you want to be urgent and you want to be able to feel confident and comfortable that when somebody asks you to go get something for them, you don't want to be wandering around lost. So navigating your sterile storage environment with ease and care, definitely organization, keeping it away from your prep and pack traffic and the things that are flowing out of the washers or any of your clean instrumentation. We want to keep clean, non-sterile items, not necessarily with your sterile storage. If you have a sterile storage environment that you have to have a mixture of clean and sterile, then we need to keep those items below your sterilized and processed items. And definitely a very organized shelving structure, something with service line specific if your facility wants to look towards service line, depending on how your inventory is organized in your system, however it's organized to your facility. In my current organization and some previous ones, we definitely did a bunch of revamping with the shelving, and we used some simple numbering techniques. So anything from shelf A, B, C, D, E, alphabetizing them, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a numerical value. And then each section can be broken out a step further by simply just having some nice organizational service lines, or even color coding was another option that we did. We did very basic color coding, and we used different rigid containers that had different color coded lids, and we actually just organized them by size of rigid container. We've implemented different projects when we have a mixture of rigid containers. So when you've got different manufacturers, types, and different sizes, you want to make sure that your shelves in sterile storage and all of the shelving is large enough and equipped to handle the sizes that you have.
And do you segment the vendor trays too? And like there's loaner, there's consignment. Do you put them all in the same spot? Do you even separate those? Like what's the best practice just for having the hospital-owned inventory separated from vendor-managed inventory?
I've seen it best to be separated. It's easiest for you to, one, control your traffic and your throughput and your volume on vendor trays, especially if you are allowing vendors to come into the department themselves. So you can avoid them going up and down all of your aisles and touching and pulling and pushing and, moving everything around if you kind of separate that out. So I am a huge fan of some of the storage solutions that are out there. The no-touch method is available, which allows you to put one tray per shelf and slide it in and out. I've seen that as the best option for vendor trays or things that are blue wrapped. So I would recommend keeping your hospital-owned inventory organized, what works best for your staff. So whatever your heavy volume of picking cases, so if you know that your highest volume may be general and maybe cysto, put those in the front closest to your distribution area or closest to your designated lift. Wherever your staff need to get to the quickest, or they may need to have a separate shelf in the front, or what we did is put EC for end cap, and we have our end caps as our trauma trays. So it's easy to run and grab that cranny in a time of need because they're on the end and the elevator's right next to it. So it really depends on a couple different factors: what your volume is, what type of procedures you're seeing, and making it very easy for your staff to navigate the space. Are they having to push a case cart up and down the aisles? And if so, are you only giving them a foot of space to do so? Because that's not going to work. So I would just want to touch on that spacing just a little. Organization is key. You could use pretty much any alphabetical or numerical value. I personally just like to do shelf A, B, C, D, E, F and assign a signage based on service line. But again, that may not work for your facility. You may need to do it based on what you use and your high turnover trays. But I would definitely recommend keeping your consignment in a section where you know where it is, so you're able to watch your first in, first out method and kind of keep up with.
Yeah, watch that volume.
You watch your volume go, and you can monitor, really, if you have it open and you look down your sterile storage, you should be able to tell what you're utilizing and what you're not utilizing. And you can then use that to contribute to the sterile storage area that you have in the OR, if you do have any space in the OR. What items are they keeping in your sterile storage in the operating room? Are they all the trays that just sit up there since 2014 and are never touched? Or is it the thing that's continuously being turned over 6 times a day, or we have on the sterile returns card all the time, like basins and things, batteries that we're using? Let's reconfigure where we're putting things and make it easier for the staff.
So it would not do justice to this interview, Randalyn, to have an educator on and not ask the last question about speaking to educators, because we're going to have folks listening to this episode that, yeah, they're new technicians, maybe they're old technicians, and they're getting all these reminders, not old as in age, but old as an experience maybe. But, we're going to have educators here. They're probably feverishly taking notes and saying, oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I never thought about that. That's important. But is there anything else that you want to make sure are like those kind of top priority things, or maybe the little nuances, that aren't in the textbook or aren't in the guidelines that you have found helpful in that educator perspective that you want to share as we close out the show?
Yeah, I could think of a few. I would like to just really touch on a couple different things. One, regulations and guidelines. Understanding maybe not what all of the industry is hollering at us to focus in on. Really just spend some time in your sterile storage, walk through, do a tour for somebody who is entirely green. So I would recommend taking somebody, maybe a student, maybe somebody else in the hospital, go find an infection control person, but who's not involved with SPD. Take them to sterile processing, bring them into sterile storage, and spend an hour and a half explaining to them, because that is going to be the best way that you're going to pick up on, oh, I didn't even notice that, because you're explaining to somebody everything that you see, because I guarantee you somebody green who's never been in that area is going to ask a bunch of questions. They're going to say, oh, why is this way? Or what is this? And that's going to make you really focus in on what's really important. I think it's extremely important to just stop for a second and focus on your area in your department, because a light bulb will usually go off and say, oh, I see something, and that's an opportunity for us to make it better. And that other person who's green may help you see that from time to time. I feel like that's helpful.
Yeah, fresh eyes.
Yeah, they're seeing things that we just may be very used to. Secondly, I would really focus in on just maybe not the specifics around temperature and humidity in general, but the monitoring of it. We are living in the age of technology, so we are lucky enough to have engineering and facilities that have these fancy checkpoints that monitor our temperature and humidity. Are they really monitoring it, or is it just documenting what those temperature and humidity is during that time? So I would really say come up with a process to make sure that somebody is verifying those and that everybody that's monitoring it knows what they're looking for. And I would really say, lastly, would just be the breakout area is one that always stands out to me. So I have a lot of experience with 2 bad habits happening in the department, or barriers. One, the location of the offices, or maybe a cubicle, or somebody who has a lot of traffic, like our inventory coordinators or our asset coordinators. If you shove them in the back of the department, in the back of sterile storage, they have a lot of visitors that are coming to them. They have vendors, they're placing orders, they're in and out all day long. That's foot traffic. Don't put them in the back of sterile storage. Move them up, move them out, so that we don't have to.
I mean, put them at decontam, right? Put that inventory coordinator back there. No one's going to want to go back there and talk to them. They can hang out all day and not contaminate anything.
I don't really understand why we're putting them back in sterile storage. So that just doesn't make their job easy. 90% of the time they're going to get cardboard, or they have packaging. They have tons of instruments coming in and out. They're sending out all of our repairs or your repairs to different vendors. So that's dirty, clean. That is the big piece of that. And then your breakout area, or a designated space where your sterile storage items, whether it be your sterile packs or modules, your soft goods, whatever it may be that's coming in and out, making sure you have a designated breakout space for that cardboard. We don't want to have a outside packaging in our sterile storage area. So giving them a designated space, and then just making sure that if it is a breakout room, make sure that if on the right side of the room you have all your sterile goods and on the left side you have a garbage can full of cardboard,
something doesn't add up there.
Yes, so that always stands out to me. I would just say, spend time in the area and spend time monitoring the staff and see what works and what doesn't work for the team. We want it to be efficient and we want it to be safe.
I love what you said, because it's really about being shoulder to shoulder. And if you're going to be an educator and a true mentor with the purpose of moving your department forward and having people who feel like they're part of something and have culture and purpose, whoever is working with them to understand, especially in the early days, needs to be able to take all of their feedback, like with fresh eyes that they have, to really look at things and say, there's value in them not knowing and asking those questions so that we constantly reseed ourselves. Well, wait a second. Maybe something did change, or maybe somebody snuck something in that we didn't really know what the purpose was. We just kind of did a workaround, and then all of a sudden it creeped into, counter anything that really is the right way to do the practices. So there's value in that mentorship and being shoulder to shoulder. Randalyn, great job on this interview. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to have you back. I can tell. I look forward to that, because we're going to get into some complex subjects next time. We're going to put you through the paces.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and it's an honor to be here, and I'm very excited for our SPD industry and where we're going.
Congratulations on your new position as well, and good luck. We're very excited to see your success there as well. That was Randalyn Walters, Corporate Surgical Services Educator at SpecialtyCare. And Hank, what a difficult episode for anybody to come on and kind of give us the 101. We talked after we closed the interview, but it's so true. Any one of these general topics that we talked about today could have gone down its own, 30-minute path. And I think you described it best. It was like when she's doing a tour and introducing a new class to sterile storage, probably takes 3 or 4 hours. So really having somebody try to cram all that into a 30-minute episode, I gotta say, my hat's off to Randalyn at really hitting all of the key themes. But, as somebody who at the very beginning said, she fell in love with this industry over the details, that must have been really hard for her to do. And I was like coming up with all these ideas, and I was like, I better hold that one back, because there's so much to talk about on this topic.
And it's one of those things, Justin, even though this whole season is about sterile storage, talking about the basics reminds us how much diversity of thought and insight is out there just on those things we all kind of take for granted, quote unquote. And so the themes about the dust covers, the themes about the consignment management, the themes about restricted access, we are aware of those, but there's so few conversations that really go in depth. And I know we couldn't do that on this episode, but at least we're bringing it back up again so that folks tuning in can go back to your department, just like Randalyn said, and have a conversation about these with your leaders, with your coworkers, and start asking, can we restrict our access more in this sterile storage area? Does everyone understand why it's actually a clean area and not a sterile area? All of those kind of themes we brought up are so valuable. And yeah, I agree. She did as good as anyone could have done on a 101 episode in 25 or 30 minutes. So
even that collaboration with EVS and how do you educate other departments that support sterile processing, that's another topic. That's a topic for Daryl Hicks, by the way.
Right.
So, all right, that's going to do it for this week's episode. But I love that we always get good ideas as we talk about and review an interview with somebody who's so engaging and exciting as Randalyn was today. I do want to remind everybody that you can support Beyond Clean by subscribing to our podcast on Apple, Amazon, or Google Podcasts. podcasts. You can find us also on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or just search for Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast application. We've also got bonus content for certain episodes. All you got to do is download our smartphone application for iPhone and Android. We'd certainly appreciate a rating and a review because your feedback is important to the show. And finally, if you've got a topic for us that you'd like us to cover on a future episode, you can just send an email to info@beyondclean.net. On behalf of Hank and myself, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond Clean.